Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I'm Jason Monroe. This is episode 106. I've called this episode Do the Other Thing, which is going to be fun. It'll give you a bit of insight into the inner workings of my mind and also the way that I coach people, but also just to help you, like even if we don't work together, if you're just listening to these podcasts, like I found out recently quite a few people are, and they're just applying the things they're learning and it's making a difference. This will be one of those episodes. And it kind of came off the back of a couple of questions I just had. I'm doing this thing just now, so it's a rainy Monday morning in Denny, near Falkirk, in the heart of Scotland. Just in case you didn't know where I was from. And it's like 6:30am. But this cool microphone doesn't let you hear the wind or the rain or anything like that. It's just me talking. I know my voice fades in and out a little bit, but that's okay. I've listened to a lot of this back and it's very listenable. In the last couple of episodes, I've had quite a lot of listens, according to my little graph thing that I get at my end. Anyway, so I'm doing a little promotion thing just now where yes, I've switched everything to a 30-day trial. Now that kind of screws me because at the start of December, who's going to sign up to a 30-day trial in December when from at the very least, the 24th onwards, you're not going to use it, are you? So now I know the funny thing is when people came in, they would find out, well, actually, do you know what? I will use it because the things you're going to teach me are going to be things that I'll carry on through that time. But on the outside, someone looks at that and goes, I'm not going to do a 30-day trial when it's coming up to Christmas. So this is why I'm doing this little promotional thing at the moment to bring people in and say, look, you can stay in December for free. You won't have access to your 30-day trial, so you won't be working through the course. And we're not going to be doing any stuff face-to-face, well, not face-to-face, but one-on-one. Like, we're not going to set up your nutrition plan. We're not going to be doing check-ins. But you can come in, join the community, have access to everything, almost everything you would normally have access to. But your actual trial won't start until you decide from the 1st of January. Between the 1st and the 7th, you can pick a start date. I also did that intentionally. Have you looked at the first week in January? It's super awkward in terms of people starting things. Most people want to start things on the 1st or on the first Monday. They don't typically want to do it on the 1st of January because they're usually dying after New Year's Eve. So the next best option is the first Monday. But I can't remember off the top of my head, the 1st of January is right in the middle of a week. I'm sure it's a Wednesday. It's like a Wednesday, Thursday. Nobody's starting nothing on the 1st. Nobody's starting something on a Thursday or a Friday because then it's the weekend again. So it's going to be it's like a 4th, 5th, 6th something. That's like when January really properly starts. But it's good for me to give people the option rather than have everybody starting on the same day. And when each day comes around where I've got to interact with them, I don't have massive amounts of people all on a one day. They're kind of spread out. Anyway, the point was, I put these little things up in my stories. I get people to tap buttons. Then I send them messages and say, look, here's what it is. Do you want me to send you a link? Do you want to come in? And somebody just said, will this help me with my snacking? I said, of course, that's one of the many things that we'll work on. But it kind of triggered this episode where, no, it didn't trigger an episode. It triggered the idea for this podcast episode. I didn't have an episode. Triggered the idea for this episode because the way that I coach, you'll probably find it very different to any of the advice that you've heard in the past. So, for example, that person, when she's just signed up, she's inside, she's going to listen to me throughout December. She's going to get involved in the fun, festive stuff that's going on. Maybe she'll show up to some of the live chats. And in January, she'll start the 30-day course. She'll start working through, and she's going to start to realize that her snacking isn't the problem. So in the same way that your weight is not your problem. So if you've listened to any of these so far, you'll know that there's always that recurring message that you do not have a weight problem. You have a number of other problems that contribute to your weight. So nobody has a weight problem. You have a bunch of habits and things going on that take your weight to where it is. And this is very similar because people think they have snacking problems, snacking habits. And Yes, that's what it might feel like. I have a problem with snacking. When I snack, I can't stop. I'm always looking for snacks. Da-da-da-da-da. And this is where this Christ, what this is was called. Do the other thing. Come at it from the other angle. I don't know. But here's a good example. So I had someone start a trial just the other week, a couple of weeks ago. And she went on and on about the weekends. I did her mini check-in, so that's not called a mini check-in now. It's a personal nutrition plan now. So we get to day 7. She fills in the form, and she posts her 2 days of tracking, which were midweek days of tracking. And she was having like 900 calories on one day, 1,000 calories on the other day. And then she went on to talk about how, when it gets to the weekend, I just can't help myself. I'm so good all week. I'm so regimented all week. Always going on, really reinforcing the idea, this belief that she had that her Monday to Friday were great. She's like, but when it gets to Friday afternoon, that's it. Once I start, I can't stop. Now, to her, she thinks that she's probably thinking, right, he's going to give me lots of advice about Friday, Saturday, Sunday now. We're going to sort all that out, and I'm going to learn how to be as regimented and quote-unquote good at the weekends as I am during the week. And that's not what I told her at all. I told her that she wasn't good during the week. The during the week is actually awful. She was too restrictive. I can't remember what her response was, but she was very surprised. But this is what I mean by I think that's what I called the episode, right? Come at it from the other angle. This is what I mean about come at it from the other angle. So it's okay. Here's this unhelpful habit, unhelpful behavior, repetitive thing that you keep doing, and you think that you need to somehow develop more control around that. You need to have more willpower around that. That's the thing you need to focus on. That's the thing you need to fix. And that's why you can't fix it. That's why it's not changed. That's why it's not improved. And if it has, it's only been temporary because it's been dependent on you being focused, dependent on your willpower, dependent on you saying out loud, I am not going to do this thing today. Or even bullying yourself or beating yourself up. Like, you're so greedy, you're such a pig, you're not going to do this today, etc. And yet, what people often overlook is, well, why is this happening? What is the reason? What's the cause of this? And they'll think that, and again, this is why people then go on to develop very poor relationships with food, because they'll think the cause is, well, when it gets to Friday, I eat this thing. I'll have that one piece, I treat myself on a Friday. I go to Costa and I get myself a big frothy coffee and a slice of cake, and then it just all goes downhill from there. Or it all spirals from there. And they think that's the problem. I just want to be able to do this and not have to, not go on and react like that. And this particular person, I had to chat with her and said, look, this whole regimented thing, this thought pattern that you've created, where you think that you're being good and on plan and on track and regimented and blah, 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 Monday to Friday, like it's not good at all. Your idea of good is super restrictive. Your idea of good is not eating any chocolate, not allowing yourself any snacks. You don't eat any crisps. You never order any takeaways. You don't do anything fun during the week. Your idea of being regimented is having I'm making this up, but having your bran flakes and fruit for breakfast and your tin of soup or whatever for lunch, and then your fish and vegetable dinner and nothing else. That's why you're having 900 calories. That's why you're having 1,000 calories. And all that is, like, here's a little trick that I use with a lot of my clients. People separate their weekends and weekdays, and they compartmentalize their week, which is the wrong thing to do. They look at the week and say, this is me Monday to Friday, and this is me Saturday, Sunday. And what you really need to do is pinch the screen and zoom out and say, actually, this is me across 7 days. This is how I approach these days. This is how I approach these days. That's why it's so unhelpful to, like, if I wrote down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on a bit of paper, and said to someone, right, tell me which days you think you're being good on and which days you're not, they would tick these ones and then they would cross those ones out. And it would be like Monday to Thursday, definitely, and then maybe all of Friday or maybe half of Friday. And they would say, like, this is what I'm like here, this is what I'm like here. It's like, yeah, because you're splitting your life up into two separate parts. You've created this way that you think you should be, and you can manage to be because you're busy, you've got work, you're focused, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's easier for many people, not for everyone, to be a certain way Monday to Friday. But get to the weekend, you're at home, you've got more free time, you wake up later, you go to bed later, you've potentially, like, much more free time, potentially time to be bored. Maybe you don't have any hobbies, maybe you don't have any interests particularly. You just kind of wing it, and you end up filling a lot of your day with a bit of snacking and a bit of this and a bit of that. And yeah, so coming back to this particular person, I said to her, look, you need to start eating more during the week. Stop saving everything up for the weekend. The reason that you're like this is because you are living in a world of extremes. I don't know if I've mentioned this on here before. People think yo-yo dieting is your weight going up and down. Yo-yo dieting is exactly as it sounds, right? Just actually analyze those words. Yo-yo dieting. Meaning, you have different versions. A yo-yo only goes up and down, technically, but you may have multiple different versions of your diet. So Monday to Friday, this is my diet. Saturday, Sunday, this is my diet. And this is when people think they're bouncing from version to version. Monday to Friday, I eat like this. Saturday, Sunday, I eat like this. And again, it's pinching that screen and saying, no, Monday to Sunday, this is how you choose to eat. This is your diet. Because people don't want to take ownership of the weekend diet. They want to think that it's something else. It's, again, coming back to that control thing we spoke about recently. They're out of control. That's not me. I'm not doing that. But it is. And it's usually set up by the week. So, day 7, I've set up this person's nutrition plan. I've looked at the 2 days of tracking. We've had a bit of a chat. And I've said, look, you're too restrictive during the week. Because you don't allow... Because, like I said, their idea of being good is not eating biscuits, not eating chocolate, no sweets, nothing. Nothing that you would typically consider to be like snacky type stuff. It's just... I have my, and this is how these regimented people think and kind of talk. No, I have my all bran and my all bran and my fruit. Then if I need a snack, I'll have a little yogurt. Then I'll have my tin of soup, my tin of Weight Watchers, fucking chicken noodle, low calorie soup. And then I'll come home and I'll have my dinner, and that's me. I do not have another thing after that. I'm so good during the week. But the problem is, you're being so good during the week that you can't live like that. And this is why, as soon as it gets to the weekend and you get that first taste of something that you've not allowed yourself for the last 4 days, that you can't stop. Because you've created this world where your brain doesn't know when it's going to get its favourite foods again. Walking by the motorway again. I'll need to remember to come into this at like 10 minutes and see how... Oh dear. See how noisy that sounds. So yeah, this is why it kicks off at the weekend. And then the funny thing is, again, if you think of it this way, right? Why is it always a Monday that people manage to switch their eating over? I think of this as like a set point, right? And again, this is a chat that I have with clients sometimes where it's like, okay, you think you're out of control. You think you can't control your eating habits. You think this, you think that. Tell me, how is it that every time you get to a Monday morning, you can switch back into a different version of yourself? Well, I don't know. Just Monday, it's a fresh start. Well, exactly. You've picked this point where you think, or you've picked this exact moment to get back to normal, to get back on track, to have this fresh start, to have a reset. Nobody else has done that. That's you doing that. Yet you think you have no control over yourself. You think you're out of control. If you're out of control, how is it that every single Monday You manage to decide, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do this now. Why Monday morning? Why can't it be Sunday morning? Why can't it be Saturday morning? Why can't it be the next meal following whatever it is that you've done wrong? If you have the ability to decide that every Monday morning is going to be the time that I decide I'm going to go back to eating whatever, healthy, balanced, good, whatever it is you want to describe it, regimented, well, why can't you move that point? Why can't it come to Sunday morning? Why can't it come to Saturday morning? And that's, again, something that we work on, where, people think that progress is just the scales, just the scales coming down, or measurements coming down, or clothes sizes going down. It's not. It's everything. If you're someone who in the past has eaten in a certain way every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single week, if you reduce that to every second Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's progress. You've reduced that habit by 50%. That's fucking mega. Then it's just one Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You've reduced it by 75%. You're now doing it 1 in 4 weekends instead of 4 out of 4 weekends. Or it might go down, instead of it being every Friday to Sunday, it's every Friday, Saturday. Then it's every Friday. Because you keep moving that point at which you say, now's the time that I'm going to stop doing this. And it's not just about getting better at deciding when you're going to stop eating like that. It's a combination of other things that help. So it's understanding that there's nothing wrong with eating like that, like this meal that you think is bad, this food that you think is bad, it isn't. Therefore, there's no need to react by saying, I've ruined everything now because I've eaten that thing, so I might as well just eat like this for the rest of the weekend and decide to get back to normal on Monday. So, bringing it back on topic, in that instance, the advice that I gave this person was, you need to start eating more during the week. All those foods that you're saving up for the weekend, I want you to bring them into your week on a daily basis. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would love to see you planning your day in reverse. So at night, I'm going to sit down with a cup of tea, watch an episode of fucking Bridgerton or whatever it is you're into, and I'm going to have a bar of chocolate or a couple of biscuits or whatever it is you're into. Because the more you start doing that during the week, the less enticing those foods become at the weekend. And there will be a bit of a crossover. Where, sorry, my dogs they look like they're poised to dive into the woods. I'm stamping my feet at them just to get their attention. Just to break that, in the same way that somebody might look at a biscuit in a cupboard trying to decide if they're going to eat it. The dog's bodies go into a certain poise when they can smell a deer or something equally as tasty lurking in the dark woods right next to me. So you bring more of that stuff in during the week, and there's going to be a crossover point where, yes, you'll do that stuff during the week, but you're still going to have that mindset at the weekend because it's habitual now. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you start bringing things in at night with a cup of tea or during the day as an afternoon snack, like whatever it is. You start having something that you don't normally have. You start having something that you would typically save up for the weekend. Walking up that hilly bit again. But then at the weekend, you still do that thing. But it gets better, right? You realise, well, actually, I don't need to do this stuff at the weekend because I've been doing it all week. It doesn't seem as attractive now. I'm not quite getting the same out of it as I was before. It's no longer a treat. It's no longer a reward. It's no longer a way to celebrate the weekend. It's no longer a way to break up my working week. It's just starting to become food. The same things I eat every day. And once you start quieting that noise, you hear me talking about that a lot. We want to quiet food noise as much as we can. Once you start quieting that food noise, it allows you to think of other things. Well, what else can I do to celebrate the weekend? What else can I do to break up my week? How else can I, now that if you think, food's like a blocker. Food and drink are like a blocker in your mind that stop you from actually figuring out what you want to do. Some people allow their worlds to shrink so much that food and drink are the only thing they do for enjoyment or for pleasure or to celebrate or to break up the week and the weekend. Because they can't think of anything else because there's so much food noise all the time. They're constantly fighting with their thoughts, constantly trying to stop themselves from eating, constantly trying to control themselves. So this client came back and said she's already done like her first week check-in, and after 1 week it was completely transformational. She's like, I never thought you were going to tell me that I wasn't eating enough. Who would have thought I wasn't eating enough? And it wasn't necessarily, this is where this idea of not eating enough to lose weight comes from. Remember, not eating enough to lose weight isn't a thing from a biological standpoint. Like, you can't not eat enough and your body holds on to fat, blah, blah, blah. That's nonsense. However, what you can do, in this example is a great one, you can not eat enough of particular foods during the week so that at the weekends you overeat on them. And by the time you play the numbers game and add up all those calories, it equates to you not doing enough to get into a deficit. That's an instance where not eating enough can actually lead to non-weight loss or weight maintenance. Now, I'll give you the other example. And this was the person who just sent me a message on Instagram, who's just joined up for free through December and will start her trial in January. Will you help me with my snacking? Now, she thinks I said yes, which is the honest answer. But what she doesn't know is how I'm going to do that. So what she thinks is I'm going to help her get better at not snacking, get better at controlling herself, teach her how to have more focus and willpower, because that's what most people think. They think that's the problem. I can't help myself. I always give in to temptation or blah, blah, blah. Like, they think that that's the part I'm going to fix. And in an indirect way, it is. And this is what I mean by coming at it from the other angle. Like, I try not to do this, but I'm at a point now where I can. Not necessarily that you place people into categories, but when somebody comes to me and mentions a specific behaviour, I can quickly run through a checklist in my mind and say, right, well, that's probably going to be this. And if it's not this, it's going to be one of these other things. So what I'm going to find out about this person in January, when they complete their form and give me all their details, I'm going to find out that they don't prioritise meals. They probably don't have breakfast because they don't have time. They probably don't take lunches to work. They just grab whatever. Maybe they don't do a food shop. Maybe they don't do any meal planning. Maybe they don't know what they're having for dinner any nights of the week. They spend all day thinking, what am I going to have? What am I going to have? They get home and they're so mentally fatigued by thinking about all the stuff they're going to eat that they end up ordering a takeaway or they just have a few snacks. So that person, I'm not going to help them fix the snacking thing. It's probably going to be, well, you need to start having regular meals. Because once you start having regular meals, balanced, filling meals that actually take care of your hunger levels, you're not going to want to snack. You're not going to need to snack. Snacking isn't a problem. Like, snacking's optional. But if you're someone who snacks all day, that's a problem because, yes, okay, you've had a 90-calorie skinny bar. Awesome, good for you. You got some chocolate, but what's it done for your hunger levels? Absolutely nothing. How many skinny bars could you eat, one after the other? 3, 4, 5? Not so skinny now, when you've just had a 500-calorie meal from 5 alleged skinny bars. Do you know what I saw in the shop the other day? I took a picture of it. It's just reminding me I'm going to post about it today. One of the saddest fucking awful things I've ever seen is a skinny bar advent calendar. It doesn't enrage. Do you know what? I was going to say it actually enrages me. It doesn't, because that's the wrong word. I don't feel angry when I think about it. I just feel sad. It's fucking sad. Hey guys, stay on track this Christmas. Don't eat a 40-calorie chocolate every day. Come and have I don't know. I doubt they're full-size skinny bars. It was a pretty big box. Maybe they are full-size skinny bars. Maybe they're celebration-size skinny bars. And they're 40 calories, the same as an actual piece of chocolate. I don't know. But honestly, like, the word skinny was like who hangs that up in the living room? Your kids have got their ones. And here's this big, Mummy, what does skinny mean? Why do you have, what, is that because you're fat? Is that because you want a skinny body? Ah. Conversations like that take place in households all over the world. What's slimming world, Mummy? What does slimming mean? What's a sin? What are these healthy extras I hear you talking to your friends about? What are free foods? That enrages me. That stirs up a little bit of anger. But the calendar thing, that's just sad. Sad and manipulative, and just the shitty world of marketing that we live in. Anyway, I think that's enough for today. It went a bit sour at the end. I'm sorry about that. So, just a couple examples there. One person who genuinely thinks they're being good during the week, regimented, I'm like this, I'm like that, and then thinks that the weekend is the problem. And like I say, you come at it from the other angle. You flip the script and say, well, actually, the weekend's happening because of during the week. So all that, this picture that you've painted in your mind of how good you are and how great you are during the week, well, actually, it's not quite right. Yes, your meals are awesome. They're well balanced. They're very healthy. You're getting a lot of nutrition from them, but you're only part way there. You're being too restrictive in another area. You're not allowing yourself any joy. You're not allowing yourself any pleasure. Yes, food can be joy and pleasure, but not all the time. But yeah, and then the snacking thing, like I said, I'm just kind of predicting how that's going to go in January. But that is probably going to be me having a discussion with a person and saying, okay, like they'll come and say, they'll say to me, snacking's the problem. They'll show me 2 days of tracking, and the 2 days will generally look like this. The calories will be very high, the protein will be very low, there'll be no fiber involved, and their fat will be incredibly high. That's typically what the diet of a person who grazes all day is, because they're not grazing on cucumber or carrot sticks or celery sticks. They're not grazing on fruit. They're grazing on a couple of biscuits and then a packet of crisps and a block of cheese or a Baby Bell and a skinny bar and whatever else. Like, it's like a kind of non-stop processed diet that is devoid of nutritional value because they don't eat any meals. And again, the way to me helping her with her snacking is going to be to say something that she probably doesn't expect, which is, okay, we're going to fix the snacking thing, but we're going to do it because you're going to start having breakfast in the morning. Because I know you think you don't have time, but if we take it, what you've told me about your sleeping habits, where you go to bed at 9 p.m, but you scroll for 2 or 3 hours, well, that's why you don't have time in the morning. And you see how it just goes back and back and back. So it's like, yep, snacking is an issue, but it's not the problem. Again, coming back to the start where you don't have a weight problem. That's the outcome. That's the end result. Like, the snacking thing is the end result of things that you're doing or not doing elsewhere, because you don't have time for breakfast in the morning, because you struggle to get out of bed, because you scroll your phone past midnight the night before you eventually go to sleep. If we work our way back, and let's say you stop taking your phone to the bedroom and you go to your bed and you get an extra 2 hours sleep. With that extra 2 hours sleep, you manage to get up 30, 45 minutes earlier in the morning. Now you have time for breakfast. Now you are starting your day with a breakfast in your stomach. And at 10 a.m, when you normally would feel hungry and go to the staff room and start looking for biscuits, you're no longer doing it because you don't need to. And because you've avoided that one, you've now made it to lunchtime. And because you've now taken something to work for lunch, and you've had that, and your tummy's now full, and you don't get hungry mid-afternoon, or if you do, you've now got a snack with you to have, which is a piece of fruit or a yogurt or something. And this is how we tackle these things. So a lot of people think, what do I need a nutritionist for? What do I need help for? That's not for me, that's for other people. It's not, it's for everyone. Because it's our job, or my job anyway. I'm sure there are other people that think like me, but there's also awful ones that don't. That's not what I meant. It means that just because someone's a nutritionist doesn't mean that they're a good one. That's what I meant. Not my way is the only way. There are many different approaches, but some of them might be pretty unhelpful. But yeah, there's this idea that there's a bit of stigma around it, actually. People think that all they need is Slimming World. You know, I can only... Slimming World's in my budget because it's only $5.99 a week and I can afford that. And it's like, yeah, can you really afford it though? Because you've been going for 20 years. You could have bought a car with the money that you've spent on Slimming World in the last 20 years. That old saying, buy cheap, buy twice. When it comes to Slimming World, it's like buy cheap, buy over and over again every year for decades. But yeah, this is why it's so valuable to have a qualified person in your corner, to have a professional in your corner, because we're like an additional brain. We're a brain that's removed from your head, and we can look at the bigger picture and say, actually, this is what you should be doing. You know, you're spending every week and weekend banging your head off a wall trying to not do this thing anymore. Well, actually, I can look at it from overhead and have an overhead view and say, well, you're banging your head off a wall because you're banging it off the wrong wall. Here's what you're going to focus on instead. And once we focus on that, you're going to find that you don't do that thing anymore, and you'll wonder why you didn't start this sooner. Right, that is enough from me. This rain is just started to hammer down. So, yeah. Until next time.